Christmas, everybody. Make sure it's working efficiently. I know a lot of people that will be watching this video will wish they caught it live because a lot of people who subscribed to me in the past, it's been for making a murder. I was just watching some of Eric Koze's old videos. Those of you who are unfamiliar with Eric Koze, sorry, 1 second. Those of you unfamiliar with Eric Koze was someone who followed Making a Murder pretty heavily. And he made videos daily on the case, and he unfortunately passed away a little bit ago. And I mean, I just don't hear anything about Making a Murder now that his channel isn't really making content like that anymore. So I think a lot of people that followed both me and Eric Koze when we were making a Murder stuff will appreciate just going over some of the stuff. I Googled just some stuff on just pretty much their names, see what's the most recent story. PostCrescent. 5 years after its release, Making a Murder remains immensely popular, but critics say it's one-sided, inaccurate, and unfair to police. Andy Thompson of the Appleton Post-Crescent. Appleton, Wisconsin, maybe? Is this a Wisconsin article, I'm guessing? In December 2015, Making a Murder debuted on Netflix 10 years after Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey were convicted of the 2003 killing of Teresa Halbach. The docuseries was a major hit for the start, attracting millions of viewers who subscribed to the streaming service. The passage of decade between the guilty verdicts and the release of the series hasn't diminished its appeal. Making a Murder and its 2018 sequel, Making a Murder 2, remain immensely popular today, but the impact has gone far beyond mere recounting the case. It has breathed life into the legal efforts to either overturn the convictions of Avery and Dassey, order new trials, or grant clemency. It has brought national and international attention to how police interrogate and elicit confessions from juveniles. Dassey was 16 when he admitted his role to the Halbach murder. Prompted law schools, UCLA, and the University of Utah included to offer courses based on this series. Sparked interest in other true crime streaming documentaries such as The Staircase and The Keepers, and stirred national debate on quality of legal representation that poor and indigent defendants receive. But Making a Murder has been revealed as well. It has been characterized by the directors as a one-sided TV show that has unnecessarily opened old wounds and subjected law enforcement and officials, an entire community, to undeserved scrutiny and ridicule. It's one-sided and very biased, former Manitowoc County Sheriff Robert Herman said after Making a Murder debuted December 18, 2015. It has created a lot of problems and shed negative light in Manitowoc and law enforcement in general, which is totally wrong. If you really look at it, though, I mean, just reading that alone, it's unfair what happened to Steven, too, like everything and how it was handled. Same thing with Brendan, like 16 years old. Go watch the interrogation. I have it in this playlist that this video will be under. Netflix and the show's producer have been sued by retired Manitowoc County Sheriff Detective Andrew Colburn, whose defamation suit alleges he's been subject to worldwide ridicule, contempt, and disdain following the release of the series. And Colburn is someone I made videos on, and Colburn came off sketchy in that documentary. And if it is a one-sided documentary, it's like, why hasn't there been a documentary made opposing the views of everything that this 2 series has said now? You think someone would make a big hit documentary? Why? And if not, I believe Netflix would put it out. Hold on 1 second. broke my phone recently. I had to get a new one that just came to the door. All right. Netflix true crime character assassination. I don't remember where I was, but I'll just go to the next article. Andrew Colburn says Netflix ruined his life. As a sheriff sergeant, he helped convict a murderer in 2007. 8 years later, the streaming service debuted a documentary series suggesting Mr. Colburn and his law enforcement colleagues had framed an innocent man. Tens of millions watched the show, won 4 Emmys, and Mr. Colburn became infamous. Before Making a Murder aired, a Google search of his name would have revealed 2 nondescript news articles about routine local crime. He alleges in a lawsuit now it turns up hundreds of thousands. He and his family have received violent threats that fill capacity of 28 compact discs. And I'm going to make it very clear that you should never threaten someone like based off any video you see or anything. But the evidence and everything that's been said against Colburn, not in his defense, that has never been addressed. So I feel like if you really wanted to clear your name, you would just go do it and wouldn't let all these things linger. And that was the same thing with Teresa Halbach, and the whole thing that came up is if all these conflicting circumstances keep popping up and like how evidence was collected, and just like if your family member died, wouldn't you want 100% certainty? And there was a lot of things that really were uncertain, and it's not really fair just to say it was all completely all one-sided. You know, a lot of things just never got addressed. And if you look at the world today and just law enforcement and just the judicial system and how politicians and people question in Congress, nothing ever gets answered. So there's going to be speculation. Netflix has made a major push into original documentaries. Lisa Nishimura, who oversees the effort, has completely objective is to create culture moment and allow people to enter a distinct experience to help us try to better understand the world around us. In 2018, Barack and Michelle Obama cut a multi-year production deal with Netflix, and Mr. Obama said last year that their production wouldn't touch on issues of race and class, democracy, and civil rights. Making a Murder is a streaming giant's most famous documentary. I examined thousands of pages of courtroom transcripts, police reports, and other public records. They leave little doubt that the series is dishonest. Examples abound of selected edited footage and omission or distortion of key facts. Making a Murder is particularly egregious, but it's part of a broader campaign by Netflix against police and in support of a progressive cause. Former prosecutor Linda Fairstein described in the pages last year how another true crime series, When They See Us, was so full of distortions and falsehoods as to be the outright fabrication. Texas Ranger Bob Prince has also complained about significant omissions and distortions in the 2019 series. And like my views, if you look at my videos, I think it's pretty clear on what I believe in. And to say this is something from the far left or a progressive viewpoint, that's a weak argument, because if you look at Avery and his family, they're not what you would consider progressive. I wouldn't see any of the Averys in the streets of Portland in Chaz. You know, it's nothing even close to what this person is connecting. Who is this? Jillian K. Melchior. The victim of Making a Murder was a freelance auto photographer, Teresa Halbach, 25. On Halloween 2005, she went missing on a job. 8 days later, investigators found fragments and splinters of her teeth and charred bones. Found fragments and splinters of her teeth and charred bones. Look at how this is written. 8 days later, investigators found fragments and splinters of her teeth and charred bones. So they found splinters of her teeth. Her only remains. Testimony and courtroom evidence established that she had been mansled, raped, stabbed, and shot before being burned beneath tires in a car seat. A jury convicted Stephen Avery of murder in 2007. Wisconsin doesn't have the death penalty, so Judge Patrick Willis sentenced him to life without parole, pronouncing him probably the most dangerous individual ever set foot in his courtroom. Mr. Avery, 58, maintains his innocence. The jury rejected his defense that Mr. Colburn and others at the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department planted evidence to frame him, and his legal appeals have failed. His defenders have appealed to public opinion, most prominently through making a murderer. It's a complicated tale in which Mr. Colburn's involvement dates back more than a decade before Halbach's murder. In 1994 and 1995, the phone rang in Manitowoc County Jailhouse, where Mr. Colburn then worked. A detective from another county told him of its inmate claimed to have committed assault in Manitowoc, for which another person had been wrongfully convicted. Mr. Colburn, who wasn't yet a cop, transferred the call to Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, which assured him that the right man had been convicted according to the lawsuit. And this, God, I cannot remember the guy's name. I remember the woman's name was Bernstein, I think, but they totally disregarded that there was a guy that had multiple instances where he had violent attacks on people, and he progressively was getting worse and worse, and they called another police department to say, wait, we have your guy, but it was completely disregarded because they didn't like Stephen Avery. It's not just, this is a case, this is cops, this was the bad person. They had a lot of disdain for the Avery family in that small community, and they never thought it would blow up to what it became today. People can't forget that, no matter what's said and how whoever's harassed and what happens, there's still not justice done in this case for anyone. In 2003, DNA evidence exonerated Mr. Avery of the 1985 assault in Manitowoc County, for which he had served 18 years. As the news broke, Mr. Colburn, who joined the Sheriff's Department as a patrol officer in 1996, remembered that long ago phone call. He doesn't think the caller mentioned any names, but wondered if he might have been out about Mr. Avery. In an attempt to provide a complete, accurate, and transparent account of the circumstances surrounding Avery's wrongful conviction. According to Mr. Colburn's lawsuit, he wrote in a statement altering Wisconsin's Attorney General about the conversation, and he testified about it in deposition from Mr. Avery's subsequent civil suit against the county. Yeah, there's like $36 million lawsuit Stephen Avery was going to try to get in his favor because he was in prison for 18 years for some like negligence like that. So after Stephen Avery was filing that lawsuit and it looked pretty good for him to win, all of a sudden he murdered Teresa Halbach. You know, it seems like a strange thing for someone to do that's about to get a big payout for sitting patiently and doing time for a crime you didn't even commit. In the documentary, Stephen Glynn, a lawyer from formerly represented Mr. Avery, is shown speculating that the call was about Mr. Avery and asserting that at the minimum somebody ought to check this out. Exactly. The program omits that Mr. Colburn came forward voluntarily about the phone call. Making a murder implies that the embarrassing wrongful conviction, the phone call, and Mr. Avery's lawsuit gave Mr. Colburn and his department a motive to target Mr. Avery. Law enforcement despised Stephen Avery, a narrator said in the documentary's first 90 seconds. Stephen Avery was a shining example of their inadequacies and misconduct. The Avery family owned a salvage yard, and Halbach was last seen alive. She visited Mr. Avery's home to photograph a vehicle for sale. Before anybody even knows whether this young woman has been hurt or killed, the focus is on Stephen Avery. Defense lawyer Dean Strang said in the murder's trial opening statements excerpted in the documentary. Defense lawyer Jerry Buting tells filmmakers, "So you got motivation for the officers to want to get him. And then when they lo and behold, there's a woman who disappears. And one of the last people she saw was Stephen Avery. Now we got him. Aha, we knew it." A series of shocking discoveries mentioned in the trial transcripts pointed to Mr. Avery. 5 days after Halbach's disappearance, a search party found her Toyota RAV4 at the Avery salvage yard near the car crusher. When the investigators looked inside, her blood was all over the back cargo area, and also found smudges of Mr. Avery's blood in the vehicle. They searched Mr. Avery's home and found Teresa Halbach's car key with Mr. Avery's DNA on it, as well as a .22 caliber rifle. Later, a bullet with Halbach's DNA in the garage. 8 days after the disappeared, officers found the shattered bones in the pit. Like, even just reading this little bit right here, it's just so misinforming. There's facts in there from what they said, but it doesn't say what kind of smudges they were, where the blood was found, what was found, and what was the other part? Blood was all over the back cargo, smudges, blood, vehicle. Mr. Avery's home, yeah, the key. They found the key days after they started the investigation. All of a sudden, Colburn shook a table and the key just fell out behind it. So go look at all the videos I have in my playlist. Go look at Eric Jose's videos. I'll put this article in there. It's just going to be a whole lot of, things not really saying the full facts. Don't really have patience for it. This is the last one. Making a Murder, Stephen Avery optimistic about upcoming appeal, lawyer reveals. Making a Murder, Stephen Avery is said to be feeling optimistic about his upcoming appeal. His lawyer, Kathleen Zellner, has claimed. Kathleen, who has pledged never stop fighting for Stephen's freedom, tweeted an update about the case on Wednesday evening. She said, "Talked to Stephen Avery today. He sounded strong, positive, and optimistic about his appellate court. We will never stop fighting to free him. We sent him hundreds of supportive messages." It's her tweet. In the case, you need to recap Stephen Avery. Okay, we read all that just a little bit ago. And then among a 135-page document, she claims the circuit court abused its discretion in dismissing Avery's request for additional scientific testing, denied him motion in relation to the Brady violations, which occurred when the prosecution failed to turn over all exculpatory evidence to the defendant. This text is hard for me to read. And that they failed to address Avery's claim that he had ineffective counsel at trial. However, in August last year, the new trial was rejected in the circuit court, meaning Kathleen has had to continue to pursue the appeal in the Wisconsin's appellate court. Soon, Averys Appeal will be decided by a judge who will have to say whether he should get a new trial. This then could escalate the Wisconsin Supreme Court. If Avery is granted a new trial and is successful, it won't be the first time he has been exonerated. This poor guy, man. His family, I don't even know if all of his family members are still old. In the documentary that was made a while ago, they were looking pretty old in that. And it's really sad, I just wanted to look up their names quick. And Twitter. I have my Twitter linked in the bio too. I don't really push it too much, but I should probably start. Same with Stephen Avery, in prison for 2 crimes he didn't commit. How corrupt and unfair is that? He's missing out on so much with his family. Very shameful of the county and government. Governor Anthony Evers, please stand up to the government officials in the office who are trying to keep the case of Stephen Avery from moving forward. Stephen Avery has an amazing attorney, Kathleen Zellner, who is working on his case as we speak. People still tweeting about it every day. So, every once in a while I'll pop back on here and do a Making a Murder. I didn't look at any of the comments. But, yeah, I'll pop back in here and update on Making a Murder stuff if I ever see an article pop up. It'd been a while since I looked them up, so we'll see in a couple weeks, I guess. All right.